Well, I know I'm not the target age, race, or gender for this show, but I'm reviewing it anyway. I've actually been reading them as a Marvel comic since it started, so I am quite familiar with the source material. It's always been a fun, fresh take on the superhero genre, very much grounded in real life. The superhero battles aren't nearly as interesting as Kamala's everyday life as a Pakistani American in New Jersey, which is fleshed out to a degree you don't usually get in mainstream superhero comics. And so far, the TV show does seem to have successfully translated that to the screen. And it's a very faithful translation of that world. Kamala's home, school, a Circle Q shop, it all feels like it comes straight from the pages of the comic. As to the characters, they don't look exactly like their comic counterparts, which are often portrayed in rather a caricatured art style. But the essence of the characters does come across, and they feel a lot more real. This episode mainly focuses on Kamala's family and her best friend Bruno, and so far they're all doing a fine job. The standout is obviously Iman Vellani as Kamala. Even though she's still a teenager in real life and had never really acted before, she plays the part extremely well. It seems they just cast the person who's most like Kamala in real life. But it works. She's in pretty much every scene, and she's a very likable screen presence. There are some changes to the comic. Originally, Kamala started out writing Avengers fan fiction, but now she's making YouTube videos instead. She only has 2 subscribers, which is meant to be pathetic, but it's 2 more than I've got. Yeah, it's great to know a fictional character's YouTube career is going better than mine. Thanks a lot, Marvel. She's cheating by having friends. That shouldn't be allowed, if you ask me. Anyway, much like the comics, she's torn between loyalty to her religious parents and her desire to partake in the wider world, which in this episode is represented by her desire to go to an Avengers convention. This looks a lot like fan conventions in the real world, although it is a bit weird if you think about it. All these characters are actual people in the MCU, so it's like they're dressing up as pop stars or politicians or whatever. You get the feeling that anyone who's ever met an Avenger could write a book, go on the convention circuit, make a fortune. Maybe that will be covered in a forthcoming Disney Plus series. Kamala's powers have also changed. When she was introduced to the comics, they were really pushing the Inhumans as an alternative to mutants, so they made Kamala one of them and gave her the ability to grow or shrink any part of her body, which is an obvious metaphor for puberty. But the Inhumans TV show was a massive flop, so that's all gone out of the window. Instead, she finds a bracelet that's presumably of Kree origin, otherwise she wouldn't be in the upcoming Captain Marvel movie, and it lets her shoot out multicoloured things that do things. It's not really explained very well at the moment, but presumably next episode she'll be exploring the limits of her powers. So far, it's not nearly as much fun as it would be to see her head and hands grow to giant proportions, but I suppose that would be a bit too cartoony. The comic had a very distinct visual style to it that sets it apart from other superhero comics of the time, and the show is going for something similar, but very different, with plenty of bright colours throughout, and an inspired use of animation to represent Kamala's fantasies. If anything, it reminded me of the film Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, with graffiti coming to life around her, and street signs turning into the emojis that are on her phone. So on a visual level at least, it's head and shoulders above the other Disney Plus shows. So hopefully this will continue throughout its runtime. What we'll be really interested to see is what happens going forward from this. In the comics, Kamala is always 16, going to school, living with her parents. But if the show is a hit, then it's likely to carry on until she's in her late teens and early 20s. Will she move away and go to college? Will she get a job? Will she get a boyfriend? Will her faith even allow her to have a boyfriend? It's going to be interesting to see how they tackle those issues. And yes, I know they exist in real life, but I can't really go up to a teenage Muslim girl and say, "Are you allowed to have a boyfriend?" That would just be really creepy. I probably won't review every single episode of this. It's easier to talk about the first and last episodes of the series, I find. So I'll come back to it when it's done. But so far, it's off to an excellent start. It's still early days yet, obviously. She hasn't got a costume, she's barely used her powers, and there's no bad guys for her to fight yet. But presumably they're all coming up in the weeks to come. And I look forward to seeing what happens. So next week I'm planning to review a movie. It's not a current one, but it's one I've been meaning to see for a while, so hopefully I should have plenty to say about it. In the meantime, don't forget to press the like button if you like this video, and subscribe if you want to see more. And if you do, I'll see you then. Goodbye.